Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to our preseason men's and women's basketball webinar to get you set for the upcoming 2021-22 college basketball season that we are really excited about. Bob Black with you here. You're going to hear and see from Coach Russell and Coach Mooney. You can see them up there on your screen here in just a couple of moments. We're going to let some people filter in, kind of file in, like we look forward to seeing you filing back into the Robins Center. So we're going to let the numbers grow a little bit here, and then we'll get started here in just a minute or so. For those of you that are on time, relatively early birds, I will remind you, if you have not already submitted a question, and we do have a long list of them, and we'll do this for about 50 minutes or so, but if you hear something we talk about, something sparks your interest or raises a question, please use the Q&A feature on the Zoom at the bottom, and we'll get to as many of those as we possibly can as well. So let's just give it about another minute or so, and then we will get rolling with season previews from both coaches, and then we'll get to your questions. That's what this is pretty much all about. We'd love for you to ask the questions of our coaches tonight, and we'll go from there. So again, we appreciate you signing up and being on board with us, and we'll get started here in the next minute or so. Okay, I'll tell you what, let's get started. I can see the numbers continuing to rise as we wait a little bit. I'm sure some more folks will join us, but we got a good, healthy number of Spider fans on board with us this evening. So once again, welcome to our webinar with head men's basketball coach Chris Mooney, head women's basketball coach Aaron Russell, and the most important part about this, and that's you and your questions for the two coaches this evening as we get set for both teams to open the season on Tuesday, November 9th at home at the Robins Center, the women against Charlotte at 3 o'clock and the men against NC Central at 7 o'clock. So speaking of the Robins Center, let me start here, and this is going to eliminate one question off of the list of questions that I already have that's been asked many and several times. And while we are all thrilled and excited that we're going to have fans back in the building for our men's and women's basketball games, I know a lot of you have asked, what will the policies be? What will the guidelines be when we come to the Robins Center to watch Spider basketball? We're not quite there yet. We are working with the university and those officials and the athletic department and obviously the health and safety guidelines, and we're putting all that in place. So I would just ask you to look for some information from us in the very near future. We will be putting it out on our website and social media, and you will have all the bullet points, all the guidelines of what you will need to do and what you will be expected to do when you come to games at the Robins Center this year. And I'll repeat that again when we get towards the end of our webinar tonight, because I do think some people are jumping on board and will be during the course of the hour. So that's one question. Let me get out of the way first and foremost. And again, it will not be too long before you'll have that information, and we will have it out for you. And the bottom line, we're really excited to have crowds back in the Robins Center. I know Aaron and Chris are nodding their heads approvingly of that for sure. So let's talk some basketball. That's the best part of this tonight. Hopefully we're moving forward. We don't have to talk about COVID, and we were talking before we joined you, no testing to talk about, that sort of thing. And knock on wood, we're hoping for a normal year. So let me get it started. Coach Russell, I'm going to let you get it going, entering your third year. Wow, we saw such improvement from your team last season. Whether you're fortunate enough to sneak a peek in a game and get into an arena and watch, or watch on live video streaming, give us kind of an overview, a preview of what you're seeing from the team this year, particularly as it relates to the improvements that we saw last season.
Yeah, I think all part of the progression. I think something as a staff that I don't know if any coach is ever patient. I don't know if any coach is ever satisfied. But I think we have to be, definitely pleasantly happy with kind of the trajectory and where things are going right now. Our team's a year old, and lost two seniors from last year, but I had a lot of experience coming back this year, and I really do think all three freshmen have been phenomenal so far, and really kind of itching towards that rotation. So I think we're really excited. I think these guys are excited to be another year into our system, both on the offensive end and the defensive end. And I think one thing that comes with that we've probably been most excited about as a staff is just how cohesive and how well they play together. This is not a system where we're telling people where to go, where they're following rules all the time. It really is kind of get a feel for each other and play off of each other. And they've really, really done well with that. Probably earlier on the offensive end, and we're working through some things defensively right now, as to be expected this time of year.
I was going to kind of follow up with that. Are you seeing the cohesion at both ends of the court, offensively and defensively? Coaches are never patient, but are you being a little more patient on the defensive end in hopes that they come together?
Yeah, and I think as part of a coach, right? I mean, they're excited to play new people, and we're excited to only coach one team. I think when things are going really well offensively, I think our staff's getting really sick of me thinking that our good offense is maybe just something we're doing wrong defensively in practice, and vice versa. So I think our kids are ready, but definitely our systems are ready for that too. And I think we've made some good strides, and probably we were a little bit ahead of the game, maybe offensively, and defensively. We're trying to get back to where we expected things to be last season.
This was an easy question to ask you in year two, and that was, how much more comfortable do you feel after your rookie season, after your first year? So I'm going to extend that now into your third year. And you made the comment on the A10 Media Day session yesterday that you still have a senior class that has been at Richmond longer than you and your coaches.
Right. And so there's still some things that you're deferring to them, and out of respect that they have been here longer. And I always said when we got here, this wasn't us implementing everything and bringing in this new regime. These guys built, and even before them, people have built some things. So maybe it's like you own a restaurant, right? You don't go in and change the menu all together. You're progressively trying to add your things, and but they've been unbelievably bought in from day one. And I think everybody's excited, but I think as seniors, they're even more so, because, you always say seniors, it's your last run, and obviously COVID throws a wrinkle into that, so you never know. But I think they've been fantastic. And I think even more so than that, more important than that, they've been tremendous ambassadors to our program, but also leaders and role models of kind of showing the freshmen. And I say sophomores, but in a lot of ways, everybody's kind of a freshman again this year, kind of showing the ropes.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that's a perfect transition into Coach Mooney and the men's team. Speaking of seniors, Chris, I would ask you to just kind of give a preview of what you've seen through practice with such an experienced team. And the obvious question is coming when we get going with the question and answer session, but just kind of where you feel these guys are with such an experienced and senior-laden team.
Yeah, Bob, they've been great since the day they walked in the door. And this, the 6 seniors, including the 4 scholarship seniors and the 2 walk-ons, have been terrific. It can be something where, it's hard to maybe do some of these little things every day that we do to build toward practice, if it's your 4th, 5th, or 6th time doing them. But they've been great. They have, there've been no complaints. There are no, I said before, they didn't come back with any conditions. They didn't, request Fridays off or anything like that. They've been really, really good. And they've always been like this, just their personalities, especially Jacob, Nick, Grant. They've always been really good at helping younger guys. And as much as they compete against them when there are live segments, they're really, really good about helping younger guys understand where to go, what might be a better way to defend that, what's a better option there on a drive. So that they haven't disappointed at all. And what we really try to do is give them as many breaks as we can. We gave them fall break off, which was a couple of weeks ago. We had prior to that, we had a week off. Now, when I say off, they're still in the gym a lot, and they come in on their own, and they get shots, and they get extra lifts. But just mentally to have a little bit of a break, we think is important for them. And they've really handled everything extremely well.
On the court, Chris, have you found yourself doing things differently for a preseason practice on two levels because of the experience you have, and secondly, because of the number of players you have?
Yeah. Well, the number of players is really a challenge. You know, it feels like a football team sometimes when we huddle up out there. We have 20 guys. So that is a lot. And it is certainly something that we really work on managing. What we don't want to do is we don't want to just have, you know, lighter practices for this 5th and 6th year seniors. And then the freshmen aren't getting the, you know, necessary reps and conditioning and things that they're used to. And we don't want to wear out the older guys just to get the freshmen their experience. So we're trying to manage that, you know, and also not just separate them. You know, we want to do everything as a team, and we want to be out there on the court as a team and not just separate them. But we're trying to do some things where we get the freshmen some extra time. And you asked if we do anything differently. You know, the older guys can go through things so quickly, whatever drill it might be, defensive, offense, out of bounds play situations. They've done these things so often, and so they can go through it quickly. That enables us to have the younger guys do it a few extra times, and that's kind of how the pace of practice has been. The older guys introducing things, getting things going, and then the younger guys, and there's a little bit more teaching and stopping when those guys are out there.
All right, so for both of you guys, you're both the same amount of days away from the opener because you're going to play on the same day in the same building. And Chris, since you're on, I'll just start with you. I mean, how prepared do you feel on the timetable you're on? I know you had a scrimmage last week, JMU. You got another one this week against Virginia Tech, and then it'll be go time.
Yeah, we feel good about it. You know, again, because the guys are older, so everything. You know, we try to introduce a situation every day at practice. You know, be at the end of game, usually end of the first half, or particular, you know, situation that comes up during the course of the game, you know, and our guys have all seen that, you know, dozens of times. And so in that way, you know, in terms of implementing what we want to try to implement, it's easy comparatively and to other seasons. So we feel like we're ready to play for sure. And really looking forward to it, and just trying to make sure that the days now are prepping us for that opening night and for the first couple of weeks of the season. You know, we're not, you know, sometimes with a young team, you feel like you don't have nearly enough in because you're correcting so many smaller mistakes. Whereas we have, you know, it'd be hard to throw something at our guys that they haven't seen, especially in practice.
All right, Aaron, how about from your perspective, a little less than 2 weeks away now from November 9th? Do you feel comfortable with that? Not that it matters because that game's going to be played one way or the other, but just, you know, how targeted you feel like you're on pace for November 9th?
I feel like we're on pace, you know, and I think probably like Chris said, you know, could we play a game tomorrow? We could play a game tomorrow and everything would be fine. But I think, you know, as a coach, you also are trying to pace your team and make sure they're peaking at the right times. You know, I think if we were fully ready to go right now, then these next 12 days might be a drag, especially for the older kids. So there is a little bit of a kind of buildup. You know, there's definitely some things that we haven't done, and probably even more things that I'm not ready to say is in final draft version yet. But you know, you're making me nervous right now. Oh my God, are we going to play tomorrow? And are we quite ready? But I know that we could. We played a scrimmage last week, have another one upcoming, and you know, the prep weirdly has kind of already started for that first Tuesday.
Hey, let me ask both of you about the scrimmages, and I know they're secret scrimmages, so I won't necessarily ask for every stat, but how do you use those scrimmages, and how differently they are than the teams that play exhibition games instead? Aaron, while you're up, why don't you go?
You know, ours isn't our opponents aren't plastered all over the internet, and you know, people find out and think it's like the greatest scoop of all time when they figure out who you're playing. You know, I like the fact that it's closed. I like the fact that we don't have to carry or care who wins. You know, you're not coaching those things to win the game. You know, both with rotations, both with what you're doing. You know, definitely have been a culprit of sometimes, especially early in the season, of not calling that timeout to see how your team's going to react. And there was plenty of opportunities for our kids to figure some things out on the fly this past weekend too. So I think it was a great learning thing for us. If you want to pick up something, the fact that we were working a little bit more on our defense this week probably tells you where we struggled last weekend. But I've been a huge proponent of those. I think it's a fantastic learning experience, whether things go well, things don't go well. We coaches can sell those things pretty well, regardless of outcome.
I like how you put that, because now, Chris, I can put you on the spot and say, what kind of things you've been working on since last Saturday before you get to this Saturday? So I will ask you that, but also your history here at Richmond has been leaning more towards the scrimmages than the exhibitions. We've played some exhibitions, but for the most part, it seems like you're more comfortable with the scrimmage. I don't want to put any words in your mouth.
Yeah, I prefer the scrimmages. To be honest, I don't love either. To be, really, I don't love the games that don't count. But I do like the scrimmages. Like Aaron said, there's, if you needed to take a 3.5-minute timeout to explain something to someone, that's fine. There's an agreement between the teams that that everybody's working on things and you're trying to get better. We try not to, we try not to prep too much for the scrimmage, and we don't, we're not necessarily trying to win the scrimmage for sure. Because what we're trying to do is play a lot of guys, see how guys are coming along, see what situations that happen, naturally during a scrimmage that we can work on and talk about. But sometimes, sometimes we've played scrimmages before, and the loudest that we hear the opponent and the most we hear talking on defense is the first scrimmage of the year. I'd hate to play our best game the first scrimmage of the year. And so, we try to play it, see where we are, and then try to improve and work on things as we move forward.
So is there something you've been focusing on this week?
A little bit of everything. I will say that, we turn the ball over a lot more than we usually do. And again, I think we've probably done that in scrimmages in the past. For us, when we're playing against somebody new, the timing and the rhythm of our offense can be different. We're disrupted if a team's really trying to do that, and not prepping for, the opponent as much as we would in a regular season game, lends itself to a little bit, maybe trying things or a little bit indecisiveness. So that showed up a little bit, and all around, we could just be better and more assertive, and the things that all coaches want. I did remind the guys before the game that it's always shocking, as long as you've been playing like our guys, how fast and physical the game is when you really start to play. You get into a even intense physical teams, you get into a rhythm in practice. And we certainly are trying to build a rhythm all the time in practice. And then all of a sudden, when a different team comes, it's really, shocking those first couple of minutes, just how fast and how physical the games are.
I guess it's not as big a deal to your group, but do you use, and Aaron, I'll do the same with you. When you take one of these on the road, does that become here's how we're going to do things on the road kind of deal? I know with your group, obviously they've spent enough time in buses and on airplanes.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, we do try to do that, who the roommates are going to be, especially the freshmen. We have some particular things that we insist on when we meet in the mornings. And we try to make sure we can get as many of those things as possible inserted, while we're on this kind of scrimmage situation.
Aaron, how about for you? How do you treat that from a home scrimmage as opposed to a road scrimmage to try and prepare them for the grind of the season?
Yeah, yes and no. And I don't, the fact that we do things maybe differently doesn't mean one's better or worse. But, I think as much as you try to get people accustomed to playing on the road, I think routines, there's always going to be something that throws a wrinkle into that, whether it's travel, whether this is a 3-hour trip, whether it's a 2:00 game versus a 7. So we actually went the day of this past week, just again, didn't feel like we had to do that. For the most part, our kids have been through that experience before. Us is mostly just kind of focusing on the game, and not to say that there isn't some things that we did to kind of, hey, this is what the bus ride is going to feel. And on the way to the game, this is what we expect, the volume of the bus or certain things. I think it's, Chris kind of said, we all have our quirks, we all have our priorities. Hopefully those things are passed down through your players of kind of, this is the lay of the land for these things. But really, we didn't do a lot of prep, kind of like what Chris said, but it really was just, let's go play the game and let's go learn from it. And, because I said road trip A is going to be different than road trip B. anyway.
All right, let's get into some questions from our fans. As I said, we have a pretty good long list of them, some really good stuff here. And again, if something comes up that you'd like to ask, and I got a couple in there now, use the Q&A feature and type it in, and we'll get to as many of those as we can. While you're up there, Aaron, this one was primarily for you. Who's been the biggest surprise with their improvement that you've seen from last season to this year?
Oh, man. I don't want to say surprised by this because then I'd probably hear about it from many of these kids. But, I think coaching successful teams over the years, it's always a comfort when your top players are making also such an incredible jump. I think Kate Klimkowitz had a fantastic season last year. And, for her to come back and had a great internship in the summer, and for her, everything that she did, last year and really the last 2 seasons, for her to get much faster and stronger, and the shot to improve. Like, I think that's a huge success, hopefully precursor to success. And then Addie Budnick too. I thought she was phenomenal as a freshman last year, much more assertive, and that can be maybe sometimes from the shoulders up, from just a comfort level, but her skill set has gotten even better. She has, her shot is deadly right now, and her ability to finish around the basket. And those weren't terrible last year by any stretch. But I think, those 2 kids we really relied on a lot last year, and they both improved quite a bit as well.
Chris, I'll kind of throw that your way as well. I really thought last year that Sal and Matt looked way better in preseason than they had in their previous campaign. You might disagree with me, although both of them seemed to show it during the course of last season. Who are those guys maybe that are in that category this time around?
Yeah, so I would say we've had a number of them. I think Jai Bailey has really played extremely well. Isaiah Wilson during the course of the summer and fall and into now really has taken a step that we would hope that he would take, but he has. And Connor Crabtree, who's practiced now for I think 4 consecutive weeks, is a really good player. And so it's not so much improvement for him, but just the opportunity to be out there and play is a really good player, somebody who can help us. And to be honest, Tyler Burton has really improved. As good as he is and as talented as he is, he has really improved, and just kind of, gaining more and more confidence and understanding of how good he is. He's definitely, I think he was the most improved player last year in the A10, but he's continued to improve.
If he could win it back-to-back years, you'd really have a story. Yeah, you'd have an All-American, is what you would have.
Right, exactly.
Was what you'd have at this point. Let me get the most obvious popular question out of the way, I guess, with you, Chris. And I'd say half of these questions reference the number of players on the team and how you're going to manage that in games. I don't know what we're going to do for the last 20 minutes because that's like almost every question that's on here, and you'll probably get tired of hearing it game in and game out. It'll become apparent as the season rolls on, but your thought process on having so many players and who you're going to put on the floor.
Yeah. So we have 15 scholarship players. The limit in all previous years was 13. So, with 15 guys, we think they're all pretty good. And, 11 upperclassmen or at least non-freshmen. And so, or non-first year freshmen.
Yeah.
And so, those guys are really, really good. Andre Gustafson is recovering, soon to be back practicing with us from surgery over the summer. But Andre, Connor Crabtree, Isaiah Wilson, Sal, Matt, those guys are really good players who have played a lot of minutes in our last game. I think Matt Grace had a tremendous game against Mississippi State. Sal had a really good NIT also. And so those guys have played a lot of minutes. They're older, they're experienced, they're mature, they're good. So it's definitely going to be something that's not the easiest thing to manage. We have to, well, for one thing, we want it to result in great competition at practice, and that has really shown itself so far. And in the other way, this is fairly unnatural. It's great that those 4 guys came back. It's incredible. But it's a little unnatural, and it's a little bit, different when you thought you would be taking your step from reserve to starter or more minutes. and that certainly isn't going to be the easiest thing, but we feel like we have tremendous depth, that we have 15 really, really good players. And obviously only 5 can play at a time. So we're going to have to manage it as best we can, but also with some understanding from the players that, we have some guys out there who have done great things over the course of their career. They're older. They have to continue to earn it, but they'll certainly be given every opportunity to play a lot of minutes. But depth is something that you can never have enough of, and we feel like this is probably the deepest team we've had since I've been here.
Yeah. Aaron, a question for you along those lines, and that is what you do see as far as the rotation, particularly players coming off of the bench.
Yeah, I'd probably still a little bit TBD over these next couple of weeks. I think from a rotation standpoint, a couple that we already mentioned. Siobhan Ryan, she was somebody that kind of was in and out of the starting lineup last year. Claire Holt has been a returner there too. So I think both of those guys at that spot. People forget about Emma Squires to a certain extent. Emma was somebody who, I think really, really performed well a couple of years ago, that first semester that we were here, ran into some injury issues. To be honest with you, maybe she and I, maybe didn't openly talk about it all the time, but I don't know if there was 100% certainty that she'd be able to play basketball again, at least at this level. And she really persevered last year. Interestingly enough, if she was not, if there wasn't this COVID year last year, she probably would have, maybe taken that red shirt just to kind of preserve the season, and because everybody got the red shirt, she came back. She's been healthy and she looks fantastic. And then, to be honest with you, kind of look a little bit at our freshmen. I think all 3 freshmen, have had really, really good high school season or high school careers. Sydney is kind of in some ways the reigning player of the year from the, she did not have her senior. She was a Richmond player of the year as a junior, did not have a season last year. And then Katie Hill played at, one of the best high school programs in the country. And so she's probably transitioning really, really smoothly for being a freshman, but playing already at the caliber and level that she has. She's going to get some minutes out there as a freshman.
Aaron had a couple questions here that did ask about what you hope and anticipate, and you touched on this already a little bit, the offense will look like, and I'll kind of two-prong that with one that's off of our Q&A link, and remind fans they can still do that, type in a question for you. I suspect you were a little disappointed with your team's 3-point shooting percentage last year. Do you see signs that this will improve this season?
I do, and that was something that you look at what we do in drills, you look at what we did in practice last year. I really thought that we were a pretty good 3-point shooting team, and maybe certain games last year we can look at doing that, or look at instances where that was the case. But I mean, I think you look at numbers, and that was not what we expected going into it. And so I think we really kind of had to take a step back as a staff and say, I thought we had some pretty good shooters. Are we maybe not putting them in the position for success? And so there's a little bit of a self-assessment that I had to do as a coach, and we had to do as a staff, and kind of talk about some certain things to maybe tweak in our offense. And even the last game of the season last year against St. Louis, we weren't able to score the way that we had throughout the year, and kind of made some things up as we went along that second half. So as far as what our offense looks like, I think a lot of it's still the same, in the sense that it's a lot of reads and trying to get some good matchups in the post, and playing very interchangeable kids, right? I think we feel comfortable that all of our kids can post up, all of our kids can play on that perimeter. So I think we're trying to take advantage of that maybe a little bit more. Grace Townsend brings a unique ability with her speed and athleticism, and she'll play more minutes now that, if we can kind of get her out in the open floor, and we can kind of get her in some open space, I think she can create for others very, very well.
Chris, that question was somewhat directed toward both teams, and that is what the offense will look like. And I would take it even a little more specifically. And one just kind of chimed in here within that offense. Where does Nick Sherrod now fit into it? How has he adjusted from his injury as far as quickness and his 3-point shooting is concerned?
Yeah, Nick looks great. I mean, for those of you who have not seen him, he's probably 15 to 20 pounds lighter than when he played his most recent season. So he looks great, looks like a new person. He has played very well. I think that, I don't want to say that he didn't miss a beat, but he works so hard that he makes things easy. I mean, he just works so hard and is in the gym shooting, working out. Now conditioning has become a big part of his everyday work, and he looks great. And he'll play a lot. And I think that he's poised to have a really good season. For Nick, who's a great all-around player and scorer, shooting is important to him, and he has shot the ball very well. It's very similar that he has a quick release. He has a good sense of where he can get shots. He sets his man up to be able to get shots, and then he makes a really high percentage of them.
Both of you just coming off of A10 Media Day, and there were a few Atlantic 10 related questions, so I'll fire these at both of you. And for both of you, which league team do you think will finish second to Richmond in the conference? What are the toughest teams that you think coming in? I realize we're still very early in all this, and preseason rankings normally don't mean very much, Chris, but from what you're seeing and hearing around the league, any thoughts there?
Well, St. Bonaventure is obviously a really good team. They have 5 starters returning. They won the conference last year. And, really, really, excellent point guard, a very good, experienced big guy, and then some great athleticism on the wing, scoring punch, toughness. They're a really good team. As always, I think there's great depth. I think there'll definitely be a couple of surprise teams or teams who really improve. But St. Louis, Dayton, VCU, all really good. I mean, those teams. I know Dayton and VCU have really taken advantage of transfers and have some talented guys joining their team. I think that St. Joe's is going to be much improved. George Mason, interesting. George Mason, new coach. They lost 4. They would have had 5 starters returning. 4 of them transferred, but then they really, have signed talented players out of the transfer portal. So it's a different world now because of how. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be good, but you can certainly add talent to your roster pretty quickly and pretty effectively in this day and age.
Aaron, who are the teams the Spiders are going to be competing with at the top of the Atlantic 10?
Yeah, I mean, only being in year 3 in this league, but being around the league here for maybe 10 plus years, this is probably the best the league has been. And I think everybody across the country says that. Maybe a little bit opposite of what Chris's situation is. Seemingly, all the top teams in our league, they all brought their seniors back, and we didn't. And so I think with some of those teams that maybe you thought were going to maybe fall a notch, have some very, very good seniors coming back. Dayton, their 3 top kids were already, I think 5th-year seniors, and now they're all 6-year seniors right now. So that's gives them a leg up right there. They were picked to win it. Very similar to what Chris said. Same thing's happening on our side. Rhode Island has, I think, 6, 7 BCS Power 5 transfers, on their roster right now. So they're a little bit definitely remade over the last few years. Those 2 kind of at the top, but St. Louis, VCU, who won it last year. There's 6 teams out there that have scheduled and really talking about an at-large bid and feel like that's within their grasp.
How about your non-conference scheduling, Aaron? What was kind of your philosophy going in this year in what you were looking to schedule opponent-wise non-conference?
Yeah, we still stuck somewhat regional for a couple different reasons. When we did the schedule, you didn't exactly know what the travel thing was going to look like with regard to still being in the COVID situation. Some of that also was having some contracts tied up with things. I think even going back to our time at Bucknell, let's go play as many good, solid mid-major programs that we can. Teams that we're trying to compete with, to get in at large, teams that we're trying to compete with there. But also you want to go challenge yourself against maybe 2 or 3 Power 5 teams. And this year going over to Virginia to play them for a tournament, thought we had another ACC opponent that did not work out. But I think from year to year, I think our goal is to have 2, 3 plus, as hopefully we grow and get to the level that Chris has his program at, to kind of play those Power 5s. But also you want to go play the Charlotte. Charlotte's picked to win the Conference USA this year. That was by design to make sure we had them this year and to lead off the season with them. Going to Ohio, another team that maybe people don't realize, but top 25 team, caliber team, and they're picked to win it on their side too. So we want to go play those teams that maybe we're aspiring to be from a Power 5 standpoint, but also go challenge yourself against the Power 5s.
Chris, how about from your perspective on the non-conference front this season? And we know fans are always clamoring, play the best non-conference schedule, most demanding non-conference schedule you can play. In terms of answering that question, there is one fan question on here that says, any fear that you may have even overscheduled non-conference this year? That may be the best like backhanded compliment that says, Coach, you've got a great non-conference schedule.
Yeah, for sure. It's, as we get closer and closer and it becomes real, it does feel a little bit, daunting, but this is what you have to do. John Hart called me in and said, let's get to Iowa as many times as we possibly can. But you have to do this, to have the best consideration possible. You have to play a great schedule. And you have, when you do that at our level, that's going to mean being on the road or neutral. And so I think the best thing we did was the 3 neutral games that we have, the 2 in the Bahamas and the 1 in Charlotte, are really good high level games. Because it's really difficult to win games on the road, of course, against that caliber team, but also generally those teams don't return the game. And so to have them on a neutral floor, it's a 1-year agreement, and you can move on. So those were really important. And then having Drake and at Northern Iowa, Toledo is a really good team. Utah State is a great team. So we feel like, we've scheduled as well as we possibly could have. And, understanding that we have a really good team, understanding that, for us, this is kind of what we need to do. And that's how we need to approach it and go about it. And very willing to do that and jump in with 2 feet.
All right. Well, to follow up on that, and this came off of the Q&A line from a fan who obviously was listening to the questions and answers. Is there a venue, away or neutral, that you're particularly looking forward to going to this season? I would say outside of the Atlantic 10, just in the non-conference games. And Chris, in your case, I think there might be an obvious answer, but I'm not really sure it is the most obvious answer. Is there a place or venue that you're most excited to take your team?
Well, we're really excited about the Naval Academy game that we play Utah State. I've played there before. It's a great gym, but the event itself, a couple of the A-10 guys and a couple of the other coaches who have been in this event, I think Virginia Tech is playing Navy and we play Utah State. So they've always had a really good doubleheader. And I think they really make it special, and our guys will get to see, kind of a little bit of the day in the life of a Naval Academy midshipman. Obviously Annapolis is just a beautiful place, and we'll get to see and develop that sense of awe for the military academy. So I think that's probably, especially since it's coming up very soon, we're really looking forward to that. And I think it'll be great for everybody and really great for our guys.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. Exactly. That's a terrific doubleheader to be a part of very early in the season as well. Aaron, how about from your perspective of the non-conference games? Is there a venue, a site that you're particularly looking forward to taking your team?
Yeah. I think going to Florida, probably, Chris didn't say the Bahamas. I don't know how that come up, but, going to Florida right before Christmas, I think that'll be a great experience, especially, a lot of us, not being able not to travel here for a while and being a part of program. I know, between foreign trips and different trips that both of our programs have had scheduled over the last few years, so we'll be able to be down there, and it's, not necessarily, they're down there a day early and hopefully able to get some time together. I think those are important. It's not just the beach. I know everybody thinks that sounds great, and it is, but I think it's just to kind of get away with your group. I think that's an important aspect that really was lost last season and really over the last year and a half. You just don't get the same bonding experiences. They're not at your house as much. They're, even going out to eat is just a tremendously different experience, as it has been for all of us over the years, or over the last year plus. But I think going to Virginia, I know it's a local thing, and probably everybody on this call has been to that arena except for me. When we were at Bucknell. We had it scheduled and got hired here. Wasn't able to make that trip. We thought we were going there the last couple of years to go play, and those things fell through partly because of COVID. So the fact that we finally are able to go play at UVA, again, it's 45 minutes away. But for whatever reason, for me personally, it seems like it's been a chase to get in there.
Totally understand it. It's a great place to go to, and it's not that far from home either. So I get it, and I'm kind of with you on the Bahamas thing. I think that's in the back of this is mine, but I love the Annapolis as an old timer who used to go to Annapolis when we played Navy. Tremendous trip, and they'll get a great experience out of that. We got, I don't know, about 15 minutes or so. So if you got some questions, we'll get to them. I've got a few more that you pre-submitted and also up the Q&A line. So we do appreciate that. If you want to sneak a couple in, Chris, a couple folks, as we've been talking, obviously you have an experienced team. You got everybody coming back except Blake Francis, but you've got 2 changes on the coaching staff. And a couple fans asked if you could talk about how that has impacted the team with Maurice Joseph and Kevin Hovde. And obviously you lost Marcus Jenkins to Minnesota and Steve Thomas to DePaul.
Yeah, so that's been, pretty different for us. We've had a pretty stable staff, and Steve and Marcus, had been here a long time and so invested, and, they and their families, very, very close to them with great opportunities. But yeah, to add Maurice Joseph, who's a former head coach in the A-10 at GW, really first-class guy and tremendous experience, great energy. I think that he has really, he's such a veteran. He has worked hard, but has seamlessly, joined the program and become part of it. He really is high energy, emotional coach who really takes just takes a tremendous interest in all of the players. I think they feel that, and they feed off of his energy. And then Kevin Hovde, of course, played for us, graduating in 2011. And Kevin has had a very successful coaching career thus far. From Columbia, he was the associate head coach at the University of San Francisco, and decided to come home, and has been similarly a great asset. I think that, it's probably a great thing to have played here and then experienced a couple different coaches and styles and ways to go about everything, and then come back. He loves Richmond more than anyone, and so he has really been he's been tremendous also. So we're fortunate, and we're able to, because those guys are such veteran, savvy, high character guys, they've been able to really fit in very, very smoothly.
Is there and we were just talking, Jason Vito and I were just talking about this today, is there a certain dynamic you have with Kevin as a former player being a full-time assistant? Correct me if I'm wrong, I could be blanking. I think he's the first full-time former player. I'm Mark McGonigal, basketball ops, Ryan Butler, basketball, but full-time assistant coach.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like Kevin and I have always been close, and partly because he went into coaching. And so I think that, we have a lot of fun together, because Mark remembers certain stories that are funny and a little embarrassing for me. And then Kevin remembers maybe the stories a little differently, but still embarrassing for me. And so, yeah, I think it's also refreshing, because they can say, hey, remember when we did this, or when we met, and this was the message of that particular meeting. And, since, sometimes I will have forgotten that, or it'll run together for me. And so it's really good to have those guys to remind me exactly, like, hey, this is what really resonated with me and still does all this time later. So I think that's been a great part of his addition.
Oh, come on. You don't forget anything. You remember. You remember everything. Aaron, our fans are definitely listening closely to our conversation, because this one just popped up. So for you, how important is it to have had the same coaching staff now for several years?
Yeah, I think continuity is a great thing. I think especially coming into the job 2 years ago, and having the staff come with, had to have a new ops person right now. So, she's been fantastic, and also kind of adding, she's been very successful at a few different places. And I think she's kind of brought some new ideas, new energy, different things. So I think that's also been beneficial, but I think Chris would say the same thing. It's not necessarily just the continuity, it's who the people are. I think we spend a lot of time together, both our staff, but now the new Millheiser setup, I think we see each other a lot, we're not in each other's offices, but I think we all see each other. So I think just having good people, and I think obviously being a parent, you want to make sure that you have good people on your staff that are leading and being great role models for the student athletes. For me also, when my kids are around, you want to enjoy their company. And I think it's great that we've known each other for a while. It's great that they can kind of, like Chris said, they can kind of reference different things that either I thought about differently or don't tell our players, but yes, we do sometimes forget things and think about things differently. But also just a comfort level of also being able to be challenged too. I don't think any of us are sitting here saying we have all the answers, that we always want to do it the same way. We adjust, we grow, we change our minds. And sometimes that's because of new ideas that they're bringing. And I think that's also something that we ask of them. It's not just, we don't want them, just doing the same things because we've done them before. I want them listening to podcasts. I want them going out and watching new teams and new film. And we did that a lot this summer as a group.
Well, I'm really glad you referenced parent, dad, in your case, kid, because there's a question that's been up here almost since we started at 6 o'clock. And I was going to save it for the end, Coach Mooney, because it's really directed at you. I think it's a fascinating question. There is quite an age range amongst the young men on your team. As a coach and maybe as a dad, how have you looked at that, and perhaps it's impacted you and how you look at your team, considering the age difference that you have?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are times when it's incredibly noticeable on the team. As you might imagine, the older guys are not only old, but they're very experienced. They're college graduates. They have, they don't have quite real world. They have bubble of Richmond.
Yes. More so in the last year or two.
Yeah. But no, they have some experience, and and then the young guys are just young and idealistic and excited and ready to go, and so you can really see it, and that's the important part. Aaron mentioned a little earlier about the older guys passing things down to the younger players, and for us that's pretty natural because this particular senior class is very much like that. But it is really interesting. And then, my boys now are 12 and 9. And so that's a pretty big difference, especially at those ages. So yeah, I can really see those differences all the time when we're getting ready. And I do trust the older guys that behind closed doors in the locker room and coming to and from practice, that they're setting a good standard and a good example of what's expected, what's coming, how not to be silly, those kinds of things for the younger guys to grow up as quickly as they can.
Great answer, really, from both of you on those questions. Terrific. Got time for a couple more. I'm going to do a couple more basketball, and then always kind of like to end with something a little bit maybe off the beaten path. And I got, not from me, mind you, I'm the serious guy, but the beaten path from our fans. Coach Mooney, for the last couple of years, we've played almost exclusively man-to-man. Assume that will be the base defense this year. Do you anticipate switching defenses any more often during games?
Well, we've worked really hard on man-to-man, and we work very hard on it every single day. So, I think there's always an opportunity to play a zone in terms of, switching up the comfort level or the rhythm of the offense. So we have a few things in our back pocket, but we would probably be mostly a man-to-man team. And, you can also make adjustments on defense with staying with your man-to-man, whether it be matchups or how you're guarding a certain offensive scheme or things. So I think we'll mostly be a man-to-man team. And if we would feel the need to change up the rhythm of the game to a certain amount, I think we have a couple of zone options.
I think this would be a fairly obvious question, but with the depth you have, could there be more full court defense? You've used it sporadically at times, and quite frankly, with pretty decent success.
Yeah, for sure. I think that we would definitely love to pressure more. I think we actually have been very good at it and have had a high rate of success. Now, maybe that's because we don't do it quite as often, but I do like to play that a little bit, and it certainly gives, whenever we can have Jacob in a position where he's making a decision or playing a free safety part, that you can't be beaten immediately is probably a good thing. So yeah, we will try to press. We have some teams out there that could be very fast, very athletic, very defensive minded. We think that could be something that really helps us during the course of the year.
All right, one more for you, Chris, basketball wise, and then for both of you, I got a couple of, kind of the end of discussion questions. And this was another popular one, I think, as you can imagine, up there with all the players that you have. Any thoughts on redshirting and any of the players at this point?
Yeah, so we've had some discussion, and I think those things will, basically if you're going to redshirt, if you're going to decide to redshirt, then you'd have to do it before the first game, or you can't play in any games if you redshirt. So we've had some discussions with a couple of players. We've always left it up to the players. It would be a hard thing to really manipulate and force a guy into redshirting. I just don't think that would work out too well. So we've included players and parents and let them ask questions and get a feel for things. So I think it would probably be something that would be beneficial to us in the long run. But it's the individual player's decision. And as those talks continue, and they'll certainly will know soon enough if anyone decides to do that.
Mm-hmm. All right, Aaron, let me ping pong back to you. A couple of final questions for you. I'm going to ask you for longer answers than the question asked for, because the fan asked if you could choose one word to describe your team this season. That almost seems too easy for you, Chris, to be honest with you. But if you could choose one word to describe your team this season, what would it be? And I will add the word why. Aaron?
What they are, or what I want them to be, or those two?
Well, it just says if you could, I'm going to read it verbatim. If you could choose one word to describe your team this season, what would it be? I guess what you hope it would be.
Yeah, I think this is already what they are, and I think we were reminded of this a little bit last weekend of just kind of the eagerness that this group has. I think some of this is the older kids trying to get back to normal. I think some of it is maybe a pretty talented and large sophomore class that is eager to get the experience that maybe they didn't quite get last year. I think every team has an eagerness right now because you just think you want to go play somebody else, whether or not you are ready or not. But I think this is a group that, I think you don't want to skip steps. You don't want to talk about things that you haven't earned. But I think this is a group that looks at the recent struggles and maybe lack of success of our program on a national level, and we recruited these guys here with the ambition to do some big things on the national scale. Certainly why I'm here and talking with John Hart over the years. This was a place, quite honestly, that I feel like we can do those things. So I think it's a group that is eager to get there. I think sometimes as a coach, you have to remind them that we can't skip steps to get there. And we don't talk about NCAA tournament. It's not a word that's in our vocabulary quite often. But I think they know how we're perceived. They know how this program is looked at right now. And I think we're all very eager to kind of make that jump here over the next few years to kind of be to the top tier of this league.
I love that word, eagerness. That's great. All right, Chris, you've had a minute or so while Aaron's been talking to think about it. You can't use the word experience. That's just too much of an easy layup, slam dunk. But what word would you use and why?
I would say hungry. I think, there are a lot of different factors that led us to this point, mostly bad and things out of our control. And so I would say hungry. I think that, when the guys decided to return, our guys are there in the summer, and we gave them the option of the older guys. They didn't have to be in the summer, and they could just go, and whether it be basketball related or family related or having fun related. And they were all here pretty much the whole time, and in the gym very often. Every time we have an off day, they're in the gym. They're getting extra lifts. They're meeting with coaches. They're watching film. And again, this isn't something that they're doing because it was the best option, and they're going through the motions. I think it's a hungry group, and they recognize they have responsibilities now in terms of leading the young guys and helping them understand and making sure we do things the right way. But in a week or so, it's going to be shifted toward games and competition. I feel like the group's very hungry and still very, very competitive.
Another great word, another great answer. I can see our PR people already using those words now. Hungry, eagerness. Both of the Cody and Jason are on this call. That both of them can use those words. All right, last question before let me ask it so you can think about it a little bit, and then I want to remind our fans of a couple of things. So hang on to get to the answer. But I love this kind of essay almost question. What's something about your team that you love that you think fans don't see or understand? Something that you love about your team that maybe the fan base doesn't see or understand. And fans, two things for you while the coaches are thinking about it. It's almost like Final Jeopardy question, I guess. Number one, we're loving having you back in the Robbins Center, and we will have an announcement shortly on guidelines, COVID protocols, procedures, that sort of thing. So keep an eye on richmondspiders.com and our social media. We're working with the university, health and safety guidelines. That policy will obviously be in place before Tuesday, November 9th, and the openers for these two teams. So a lot of you asked about that. It's coming before long. And if you don't have season tickets yet, or your friends don't have season tickets, they are both available. I think Cody's going to put links up for online information and to reserve season tickets for both men's and women's basketball. So that's going to be up there for you, and you can go to our website at richmondspiders.com or call our ticket office 1-877-SPIDER-1. All right, let's wrap it up. We're almost right at an hour. Since I started with Aaron to start the show, Chris, I'll start with you to end the show. What's something about your team that you love that you think maybe fans don't see or understand?
I would probably say it would probably have to do with how much we laugh together. Just how, funny many of the guys are. Really just about all the guys. And they can have some good jokes at their teammates' expense, at the coach's expense. But that's what I would say, just how much we laugh together and how much fun they have with one another and with the coaches.
All right, Aaron, you get a chance to put an exclamation point on this. Give us something you love about your team that fans either don't see or don't understand.
Well, sometimes when you go second, you get to kind of hear what somebody else says. And, now I'm going to go second. I'm going to be accused of just copying everything that Chris said. I promise I would have answered this the same way during my my Final Jeopardy time that I got there. I think as a coach, you got to be who you are. But sometimes, I think away from coaching can be pretty sarcastic with a lot of things. And people always say sarcasm doesn't always work coaching. Sarcasm doesn't always work with married life and with kids. They don't always hear it the same way that you do. And sometimes that does come across in coaching. You can definitely get yourself in trouble. But I think our kids have kind of picked up on that, and so if I'm kind of giving them a hard time, that comfort level, it was just tough last year for all the reasons that we talked about. In the first year, you're new and you're kind of careful with some things. But, I think some of the sarcasm that we share amongst ourselves as coaches has kind of probably bled over a little bit more to our team. And like Chris said, I think when they get that comfort level that they can give you a hard time, as quote the authoritative figure, when they can give you a hard time on things and give a hard time to each other in your presence, I think that speaks a lot to them, to just kind of how much fun they're having, kind of how they're great kids with bright futures, both basketball and non-basketball. But I think just the relationship with them that they have with each other, but also just the amount of fun and relationship we have with them is really pretty cool.
We have fun-loving teams, and we are going to love watching them play on the court this year. This was really a lot of fun. Can't wait to see you guys out there on Tuesday, November. I can't believe nobody asked this question. Have you guys thought about what you're wearing on the sidelines this year? Now that we're out of the COVID thing, what's happening there, Aaron?
I know Chris's style, man. He's there. He's got some suits. He's waiting to show off to everybody. I'm probably in the let's just hope those things all still fit right now. But I think we all really are eager to get back to normalcy, and I'd love to kind of get back to the way things were. You see the NBA guys all kind of extending this casual thing, so maybe that's kind of supposed to follow their lead. But I think at least for game number one, man, I think we're all so eager to get back to So the way things were, that you'll see a tie, you'll see a suit, and like I said, hopefully everything still fits.
Chris, real quick.
I agree. I think we ought to be dressed up, and I think a lot of people come into those games, and not that they're there to see that, but I think that you have to put your best foot forward there, and that to me is one small way we can do it.
Can't believe I asked that question.
We all know Chris's staff and my staff are texting each other right now, talking about how they can convince us otherwise.
Yeah, exactly.
They've been trying to get you to go in the sweatsuits, probably.
I think so. I think so.
Well, however you're looking out there, we can't wait to see you, and we look for big crowds on Tuesday the 9th and throughout the course of the season. Chris, Aaron, thanks for the time you spent with us this evening. I'm sure our fans loved it.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Bob.
All right. Thank you all. We'll see you at the Robbins Center. And thanks to our great staff, Alumni Relations, and Ashley and Cody and Jason. We appreciate all you did in helping to put this together tonight. More of these are certainly to come. See you at the Robbins Center Tuesday, November 9th for the women's and men's home openers, and go Spiders.